secret is I just smile and say, follow me. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Life's too short not to really live. I got a big heart, I can let you in. I'm sitting on top of the world.
Hi there, and welcome to Toxic Bliss, Surviving Narcissism with me, Awen Reese. I'd like to apologize for the delay in getting this episode released. I had a lot of new projects starting and a computer and data loss right in the middle of it at the worst possible time. But I'm back up and running now, so things are back on schedule, and I thank you for your patience. So, this episode is going to be a doozy. Mike had just showed up and needed a place to crash. I gave him a 2-day limit and told him to find somewhere to go. It was hard having him back because I didn't want him there, but being in his presence made it very challenging to maintain that feeling. The next 12 hours of my life were filled with tornadoes, volcanoes, and earthquakes, all hand-delivered to me by Mike himself. So let's get right into it. Maggie had come home from school and said that she wasn't feeling well. She had a bad cough, runny nose, the usual winter cold kind of symptoms. She was tired and just wanted to lay down by the couch and watch TV. I made her a little bowl of chicken noodle soup and helped her get all comfy in the living room. Mike was making random comments about coddling her too much and too much TV and stupid things like that. I didn't acknowledge them at all, let alone reply to them. Mike and I were sitting in the kitchen, talking about his plan for where to go, and he started telling me about all the revelations he had while he was gone. He finally realized that he loved me and no one else. He understood now that no one else could love him as much as I did. And he sat there pontificating about love and life and joy, and I just looked at him and remained quiet. I felt a sense of sadness, although distantly, because I simply didn't believe a word coming out of his mouth. But oh, how I wished it had been true. My therapist's voice was echoing in my mind. It's not real. Nothing about him is real. So, can I stay? I heard him ask through the fog of my own ponderings. Wait, what? I said. Stay here? No, you can't. I meant it when I said 2 days. But I need you, he whined. As a quick side note, most of y'all know that I play World of Warcraft, and in one of the later expansions, there's a character, Malfurion Stormrage, supposed to be this big, powerful druid, leader of the druids. And he gets separated from his love, and you're trying to do a quest to find him, and he's screaming and whining the whole time. While I was playing the game recently and heard this, all I could think of was Mike, and it cracked me up, so I thought I'd share it here.
Where are you, Tyrande? I need you.
Hold on, my love. I am near.
That still cracks me up. Alright, anyway, back to our story. I want to be here with you. I want to raise my son and be a good father for Maggie. You have to take me back. His expression looked pained, but forced. Listen, I told him. Get yourself a place to stay, get a good job, and keep it for longer than, say, a month. Save up some money and get your finances fixed. I can't afford to support you. While you're doing that, we can talk and maybe go on a few dates or something. Slowly try to build a relationship again. Trust is non-existent right now, and I don't want to be with someone that I don't trust. It's not happening, Mike. It's going to take a long time to rebuild that. He seemed shocked, but what do I have to do to prove that I loved you? Did you not hear anything I just said? I just told you exactly what you had to do. You can't suddenly rebuild trust with words. It takes a long time, and your behavior will speak much louder than anything you could ever say. Huh, I thought to myself, maybe this therapy stuff is actually doing some good. He sat back in his chair and pouted, of course. Now would come the, "How could you? I'm so sad and you're so mean" card. I rolled my eyes in anticipation. However, Maggie had come over to us, and I picked her up and sat her in my lap. Her forehead was very warm, and she looked miserable. Poor baby. I asked Mike to grab me the children's cold medicine from the bathroom, and I measured out a dose for her. Of course she didn't want to take it, and I spent quite a bit of time trying to cajole, bribe, and coerce her into drinking it, but she just couldn't do it. She tried a couple of times, but each time she immediately gagged and almost spit up. I went into the bathroom to get the little eyedropper thing out of the medicine cabinet, which was generally what I used for giving Maggie medicine. When I came back into the kitchen, the sight that greeted me evoked a fear, panic, and an anger that could probably have qualified me for a valid crime of passion defense. I had been out of the room for less than 30 seconds, and in that time, Mike had turned in his chair, taken Maggie, and stood her in front of him. He was holding her in place with one of his legs wrapped around hers, one of his arms pinning her arms to her side, and all the while he was trying to pour the medicine into her mouth. She was wriggling around and trying to get free. I crossed the kitchen in 2 steps and screamed at him to let go of her. When I reached him and grabbed for his arm to pull it away from her, he looked at me with a cold, dark fury. I realized that my expression must have matched his perfectly in that moment. His gaze wavered first, and he let go of her. He seemed to be questioning how far he thought I would actually go, and decided that backing off was a good idea. He also seemed to realize that he had just killed any chance of the reconciliation that he begged for minutes earlier. I grabbed Maggie and took her to the couch for comfort and to wipe the spilled medicine off her face. Mike pushed himself up from the table with much anger and banging of things and stormed out of the door. Good, I thought. He doesn't have a key, so F that guy. I went to lock the door after he left and returned to Maggie. I asked her if she was okay, and she just said that she really hated taking medicine, but she was sorry. And that kind of broke my heart. I told her that she had nothing to be sorry for at all. I was sorry. She didn't understand this, of course, but she seemed no worse for wear. She said that she was okay, but could I sit and hold her for a while? And of course I did. She fell asleep in my arms, and I carried her to bed and tucked her in. About an hour later, Mike came back and knocked on the door. I opened it to go out into the hallway and talk to him, but when I looked at him, I saw another dizzying sight. He had a few large bouquets of flowers, some big stuffed animals, and there was also a large box on the floor next to him. He had bought a new computer? He was crying. "I'm so sorry. I keep messing up everything and ruining the only thing I've ever wanted. I don't know what to do. Give me a chance. Let me go to that therapist with you, huh? Look, I got you some presents. And I even got you a computer to replace the laptop I broke. I'll do anything to make this up to you. I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you and Maggie. Please." He was sobbing so hard that I was sure some neighbor would call 911 if they heard this, and I was frankly embarrassed. "Get inside," I said. We went back into the kitchen to talk. I laid the flowers on the counter, and he asked if I was going to put them in water, in a vase or something. "I don't have any vases," I snapped. "Remember that I lost everything I owned because of you? Buying new vases wasn't high on my priority list." I was shocked at my own facial expression. I was literally snarling at him through gritted teeth. "Settle down, killer. I was just asking. Geez," he said as he put his hands up in front of himself. "Remember that list of things you needed to do before I'd even consider taking you back?" I asked him, and he nodded. "Add therapy to that list and get your own therapist. Don't use mine. That's just weird." He sighed and said, "I wasn't trying to hurt her, you know. I just wanted her to take the medicine so she'd feel better. You were just being too nice about it. Sometimes you just have to get it into them." "Yes," I said. "Your parenting philosophy is why I've never left you alone with the kids, and I never will." "Ugh," he said as he rolled his eyes. "Can we just not fight right now? Let's watch a movie or something and go to bed." "Mike," I explained softly, "this is not just some little fight. This is a big problem. I don't trust you around the kids. You're too controlling, and you lose your temper at the smallest things. How am I supposed to live with someone that I can't trust with them?" "Ugh, why are you always so melodramatic?" he asked snidely. "Well, why can't you ever see outside of yourself?" I shot back in retort. "I don't even know what that means," he said. "Clearly," I answered, as I walked to the closet to get the couch ready for bed. I got my pillows and blankets out and I laid down on the couch. He could watch a movie if he wanted to, but I was going to sleep. F that guy. He sat on the floor and watched some movie or other, and I drifted off to sleep quickly, eager for the mental escape. Let's take our quick break here, and when we come back, we'll find out if we make it through the night without any drama. Chances of that are pretty slim. Welcome back. I woke in the middle of the night because the light from the TV that was still on was bothering me. I lifted my head to see if he was still watching TV, and I saw him on my new computer. He had set it up silently while I slept and decided to give it a go. I looked at the screen to see what he was doing, which I had a clear view of from my position on the couch, and I saw... Wait, what is that? It took me a few minutes to realize what I was seeing there. He was in some sort of voice video call with a woman. I could hear her voice, but not what she was saying. But there on the screen was her naked chest. Not even her face, just her bare chest. But there were words written on her chest. Very derogatory words. And I heard him whisper something, and as he did, she wrote a new word on herself. What in the ever-loving hell was I watching here? I was shocked, stunned, really, completely off guard. I didn't make a sound, and I didn't move. I needed to think this through because this was something that I totally did not understand, and it felt like there was some new level of evil to Mike that I just couldn't comprehend. I stayed very still and quiet and pretended to be asleep as I thought this one over until the sun came up the next morning. Mike had eventually fallen asleep on the floor with some spare blankets and pillows, and I was up before the alarm, and I got Maggie dressed and ready for school. She was feeling better, and her fever had gone, even without any medicine, but I wanted her to go to school that day so she wouldn't be around when I confronted Mike again. Mike woke up and made sure to spend a few minutes with Maggie, apologizing for the medicine incident and showing her the stuffed animals he got her and all that. I didn't let that go on for long. I got Mac all bundled up in his winter gear, and Mike said that I could just leave him here. He'd watch him. And I shot him a glance that said, "Yeah, right, buddy." The kids and I headed out the door to the bus. It was relatively warm that morning, and poor Mac was horribly overdressed, but we wouldn't be outside for long. The bus came quickly, and I took Mac back inside for his morning Sesame Street ritual. When I got back inside, Mike was nowhere to be found. There was a note on the table, and it said, "Out to find a job, be back later," with a big heart drawn on it. He had just left the door unlocked and took off while I was outside with the kids. Great. This guy has no effing sense about him at all. I decided that since he wasn't here, I would have a look at the computer to try to find out what he had been doing last night. There were no files on it that I could find of that video call, not even temporary files, so he must have cleaned up his tracks pretty well. I decided to check his emails again, as they had often been a trove of information, and sure enough, there it was. A series of emails to and from several women, including Jessie. He was still begging her to be with him as of a few days ago. But there was a new one this time, Cloud Chaser Girl. Now that's a fictitious name since her real account is apparently still active. Yes, I checked. So, who is this new chick, I wondered, and I read through their email chain. He had emailed her last night after I had fallen asleep, and he said that he was just staying with a friend for a few days until he could get a train down to Texas to be with her. It was all the same stuff I'd read 100 times. The same lines, the same jokes, the same flirtatious conversation. I thought that he could cover a lot more ground if he would just macro all of this and run a bot to spam every single woman in the country with his emails. Well, it had been a whirlwind 24 hours with Mike back, and I was ready to get off this carnival ride. I made up my mind that when he got back from wherever he was, that I would ask him to leave once again. While I was waiting for him to come back, I decided to email this Cloud Chaser Girl and let her in on a few secrets about Mike. She replied almost immediately. He told me you would do this, that you'd try to contact me and tell me all kinds of lies about him. I'm onto your game, and you can just forget it now. I'm his future. You are his past. Oh, if I had $1 for every woman that told me that last line, well, I'd have about $20, but, still, that's $20. I replied and said that I wish them both the best and have fun. I understood the type of spell that she was under, and I knew that had I gotten an email like the one that I had sent, I wouldn't have listened to it either. Oh well. I set about collecting up Mike's things once again. There wasn't much this time, though, and I got everything into a little pile by the door. I had thrown the flowers in the trash, but I was keeping that computer. He could fight me if he wanted to, but he was going to lose. I was at least going to get something useful out of this mess. It was time to go meet the school bus, and Mike still hadn't returned. I was unhappy about this because I didn't want Maggie to have to witness another Mike drama. I could have called my mother to come and get the kids, but then I'd have to explain why, and there would be another argument to deal with, and I was just not in the mood for that. So I would just have to try and make this as calm and gentle as possible. The kids and I were just finishing up dinner when Mike finally knocked on the door. "I'm going to need a new key," he said as he came in. "No, you really won't," I said, almost laughing. I put a Disney movie on for the kids and got them situated in the living room, and I went back to the kitchen to talk with Mike. "So, how'd your job search go?" I asked him. "Not so good, but I went everywhere I could find. I put in tons of applications, so something will come of it, I'm sure." I nodded and said, "Great." "Listen," I said slowly and quietly. "Don't upset the kids. Just be calm, but listen. I want you to leave. Right now. All of your things are by the door. Just take them and go, okay? Don't make a scene. You're not welcome here, and I want you gone for good this time. Don't come back. Don't call me. Just go away and stay away. Okay?" He opened his mouth and took in a big breath, preparing for something loud, no doubt. I made a shushing gesture, and he closed his mouth, but his nostrils flared as he exhaled, and he genuinely looked like a raging bull. It was pretty funny, and I worked hard to stifle a laugh. "Why are you doing this to me?" he whispered. I cocked an eyebrow at him like, "Seriously? You don't know?" "The medicine incident yesterday, the naked boobs on the computer last night, Jessie and Cloud Chaser Girl. Any other reasons I don't know about yet that I should add to that list?" The look on his face was priceless. He had no idea that I had seen that video call, or that I had gone through his emails again. This guy doesn't learn real quick. He slammed a hand on the table, and I put my hand over his fast and dug my fingernails in a bit and said, again through gritted teeth, "Be quiet." He did that open mouth, extended jaw, troll from under the bridge, mad breathing thing again, and stood up. I watched with curiosity, wondering what his next move was going to be. He grabbed a butcher knife from the knife block and went into the bathroom and closed and locked the door. Oh dear. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with suicide in my life. In fact, I only know one person that had ever done it, and that happened many years after this event. So I had no basis for comparison, or even a good understanding of it in my life at that point. But this just pissed me off. It was intended to scare me and to make me feel bad for him, but sympathy was the last thing on my mind in that moment. I tried to open the bathroom door, but it was still locked. I knocked on the door and said, "Mike, open the door. Mike." But there was no response. I heard a loud groan inside, a noise, a crash, and the knife clanking to the floor. Oh dear. I grabbed a butter knife real quick and jimmied the door open, expecting to see well, not what I saw. He was on the floor, half curled over, clutching his side, and as I looked around, not seeing any blood at all, I saw the blade of the knife on the floor and the handle of it on the sink. I realized that he was fine and he had not actually stabbed himself. And then I was even angrier. He broke my new knife. That knife set cost a fortune, and he just had to pick my favorite one to ruin. Now, those knives were also full steel tangs, too, so I wondered how he even managed to snap off the blade. That must have taken some effort. "Well?" he yelled at me, seeing that I was lost in thought and not paying him any attention. I looked down at him lying there on the floor and said, "Move your hands." They were still clutching his side as if he was holding a wound. "No," he yelled, "I need help." I said, "Help with what, exactly? You're not wounded. There's no blood anywhere, and knives don't break like that from you stabbing yourself in your soft, mushy tummy. What the hell is wrong with you?" This was clearly not the reaction he had wanted. He jumped up to his feet, letting go of his wounded ruse, and glared at me, flaring all of his face holes with his dramatic breathing. "How does a 72-hour psych hold sound to you?" I asked as I reached for the phone. He left the bathroom, grabbed his things by the door, and left, stomping off down the hall. At least this time he didn't pull the fire alarm. I considered calling the police, but I chose not to. He didn't actually try to kill himself, and he would be so enraged if he had been picked up that he'd surely retaliate at a later date. I decided to just let him go and hope he would never return. I looked over at Maggie, and she said, "Is he gone?" And I said, "Yep." "Is he coming back?" And I said, "Nope." And she nodded her head and went back to her movie. That girl's going to need some therapy someday, I thought. All in all, his leaving that time was very dramatic, but at least relatively quiet. There was no yelling, and I was glad for that. I was still really pissed about my knife, though. Why couldn't he have used the fillet or the paring knife instead? God, he's so rude. But that was it. He was gone, and I was very glad he was. I had a lot of feelings to process, and my therapist was in for one hell of a week, but I smiled. I had stood my ground for the most part. I knew I shouldn't have even let him come in the door when he appeared the other morning, but I was a giant softy, and the thought of letting my son's father sleep outside in winter, that was too much. My sense of right and wrong just wouldn't allow that. Then, but now, I was fine with that idea. Maybe he'd freeze into a giant ice block, and someday they could thaw that Neanderthal out and see what made him tick. That thought made me giggle a lot. The stress had broke into an uncontrollable fit of laughter, which I'll take. It was a lot easier than tears. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Next time, we'll find out what ultimately happened to Mike after leaving that day and what my therapist had to say about it all. Until then, thanks for listening and take care.
People ask me what my secret